Okay, so if you're watching the video today, I assume that you don't know how to center. So, that's what we're gonna learn. Let's get down to it. So basically, centering is pulling the clay all the way centered so that when you open it, no one side has too much clay. And you can see this whenever you're throwing something, that if the brim of the pot or vessel that you're throwing looks kind of lower on one side, higher on the other, that's because there's more clay being pulled up on the high side and less clay being pulled up on the lower side. So, to get a good pot, it all starts with centering. If you don't center well, then your pot's not going to look very well. So, first you have to start off by throwing it into the bat. I'm going to grab a dry bat. This one I've already thrown on, which is a really good surface to get your clay to stick to. Not over here where it's got slip on it, but right here in the center. That's nice and dry. Whenever I touch it, my fingertip kind of sticks to it. So if you throw your clay right there, it'll stick to it as well. So these bats are actually already pre-dampened from someone else using them because we work in a shared studio here. But you can see the center. The center is dry and right here is damp. A damp surface allows the clay to stick to it very well. A problem with centering is that your bat is not damp and it slides off because it's too dry. It can't stick to it. So in this case we have a damp bat, so that's good. So we can throw it on there. And then the first problem people usually have is they don't throw their clay right in the center. So if I turn this on, you can see that clay is pretty much already in the center. But if it wasn't, let's say if I threw it over, and you saw how easy that came off, and I'll show you how to solve that here in a second too. If I throw it over here, I would never try to push that center. You're gonna fight the clay all day trying to center something like that. So, what I do is I aim for the middle, make sure there's no slip under your clay. That's bad. Slip is, it's slippery. You don't want that under your clay. So then we're gonna throw it for the center, just like that. So now ideally it'd be stuck very well. So let's try to start centering. Oh, it slipped off like that. So another problem that you have is that you haven't sealed the clay to your wheel head. And if it slides off and slides, like let's say it slides right through this slip and you got a whole bunch of slip right on the bottom, that's not going to be a good surface to mate to the wheel head. So if it does slide off, don't pretend like, oh, that didn't happen, and just try to keep going and just, oh, I'm going to scoot this right back in the middle and no one saw me. I'm going to keep throwing. What you want to do is you want to peel it off, give it a good scrape, and get all the slip off of the bottom of the clay. And once you've done that, make sure you've gotten all the slip off your wheel head, like so, and then give it a nice big toss right into the center. Okay, so now that that's covered, you want to seal it to the wheel head. So usually you take a fair amount of water and run your finger right along the bottom. And it's going to make this nice groove, and on the inside of that groove, there's going to be a nice little ramp looking guy. This is a little exaggerated, I wouldn't push it as far, but you see how it has a nice slope, and that slope mates right to the wheel head. If I grab this guy, he's not going anywhere. Alright, because it's sealed to the wheel head. He's not going to fly off at all. Okay, so now we look, and you can kind of see with my hands how it's off center. Now, how I usually center is I take both hands and kind of pull them in. And whenever I'm pulling in, I'm using the palms of my hands to also kind of compress from the sides, and all the force is kind of going towards the center. Now, if you try to just grab the clay and move it, your arms are going to move an awful lot. So you can see my arms aren't stable. Therefore, the clay is not going to go into place at all. It's just not going to happen. Because unless you're really, really good, then you're not going to be able to push that in because it's moving my arms pretty bad. Now, for, you know, architecture, there is strength in triangles. So if you take your bicep, your humerus, and put it right in, your elbows right into your knees, this will give you a triangle in between your arms and your femur or hips, that area. That will give you a nice steady platform that once you start centering, the clay is not going to move you. So I'll try to open my hands a little bit and let you see kind of how I'm moving into the center. And we're going to bring it up just like that. So what we've done is we've pushed the clay up a little bit. Now I'm going to do what a lot of people refer to as like the karate chop method. Some people only center by pulling in, and some people only center by doing the karate chop. It's personal preference, generally, that once you become good at throwing, you'll find what your personal preference is. And there's no real right way to do anything in ceramics. There's only the way that works best for you. So you could, I'll show you the karate chop method, is where you guide with your non-dominant hand and then kind of squeeze it down with your dominant hand. For me, it's my right hand. And once we do that, then we're gonna go, I switch it up, I go between both, like this, coming only from the sides with my hands to push it into a cone, and then I come back to the top, pull it down. An alternate method to doing the karate chop is actually to use your thumbs. So instead of going like this and centering, you just mate your fingers together and push in with your thumbs over the whole top. So I can show you what that looks like. And if you look from the inside, you can kind of see how that works. And it's all one motion. That's why a lot of people prefer that, is that it's one motion. You're not ever leaving the clay to switch hand positions. And if you notice from throwing, if you just pull your hands away real quick, it unsettles the clay. So the less you take your hands off and on the clay is probably better. Alright, so now it's centered. Let's talk about centering it into forms. There's a few forms, like a vase or a cup or a plate. So those all have drastically different end shapes. So if you think about a vase will probably be about yay tall and maybe about yay wide, just to give a reference. And then a plate would be this wide and about this tall. So if you were centering for a coffee mug, this would be a good place to start, because a coffee mug is about half as tall as a vase is going to be and about a little bit wider. But a plate is like much too wide. So let's cone this up by using both of our hands together, like so, if you can see. And then we can bring it down just a little bit. And then what we're actually doing is kind of coning it up and then bringing it back down a little bit. So you can kind of see it's taller. And then let's flatten her out and make it into a plate. And in centering, what a lot of people do is they do what's called wedging on the wheel. Is when it's actually on here, you cone it up to where it's nice and tall, and then you use your hands, or in the karate chop method, to cone it back down. And what this does is it pushes the air to the surface of the clay and can push a lot of the air out. That's another problem that you'll have if you don't wedge your clay enough before you throw. What'll happen is you'll have air in your clay, and whenever you go to center, you'll hit an air bubble, and since there's not as much clay there, there's a lot of air, you'll get the unbalanced look to it. Okay, so now centering it out to a plate, I use the karate chop method, and I just let it go all the way down until it's about like that. So now this clay has been brought all the way up into a big bowl shape, into a big vase shape, and all the way back down to a little plate shape. So then you'd keep doing this to get a bowl, or to get a plate, just like that. And once you get down here, you can, some people say it's cheating, but I usually nib off the edge, because when you push it down that far, it's really hard to keep centered. So you can just nip off the edge like that, and then your edge is even again. Alright, that's all I have to show you for centering. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. If you liked the video, you know what to do, and if you didn't, well, you also know what to do. So thanks for watching.